Hello, welcome to this video where I'm going to talk about the moveset update that just dropped. If you haven't looked through the blog post yet, do not worry. I think your meta picks from previous season are still very viable, but there have been some very good nerfs, mostly, and very good buffs. Let's take a look at what I'm most hyped about here. So this video is pretty early on, basically right after the announcement. We don't have the exact stats yet on some damage and some energy generation, but at first sight, I think that these Pokemon benefit the most from the moveset update. And as you see, there are probably a few Pokemon that you already have here. Now, I will go more into detail why I think this is the case. Let's take a look. One of the most exciting nerfs to me is the nerf of Lantern, a very easily obtainable Pokemon, but it was very strong covering water types, fire types, and those were just very dominant in this meta. Spark now is stronger in damage wise, but it generates energy slower, and most of Lantern's damage before came out of Surf and Thunderbolt. Two pretty good moves, but now it takes longer to get to those, and I think that makes Lantern a little bit more balanced. I still think it's good, but it does open up. Its slower moveset does open up the path for other water Pokemon, for ice Pokemon, because it resists ice. Flyers, I put Pelipper here, obviously one of my favorites, but also Pokemon like Charizard. However, there is another thing to this, we will get to that soon, and fire types. So that's why I think the Lantern nerf is pretty big. You would think it opens up the way for more flyers. That is true, but let's take a look at a flyer that's also nerfed, and that's these flyers below. Now, what do they have in common? They have Sky Attack, and Sky Attack now costs more energy, which means that we might see less Noctowl and Lantern that have been so dominant over these past couple months. Also, Altaria, we've seen a lot in Worlds, now has been slightly nerfed. That's the second hit it honestly takes with Sky Attack. Same for Skarmory, not as common at all, really thrives on its defensive typing only, but Air Slash is just not great on it. And for Master League, some Ultra League, Lugia also has been nerfed, has a pretty expensive moveset now with Sky Attack and Arrow Blast. So that's another very exciting nerf. And this basically kind of paves the way for grass types as well, because with Lantern basically a little bit out of the way, with Noctowl a little bit out of the way, grass types might become better. Now, there's another significant nerf, two significant nerfs that are not as relevant, but that I do want to point out. One very small nerf, I would say, is Psychic. Psychic now has 5 less damage, and I think we all know which Pokemon it hurts. It hurts basically these three. There are like very few Psychic users. We have Medicham primarily, and Medicham basically KOs some Pokemon with the counters, like bulky Pokemon like Azumarill with that Psychic. But now it does a little bit less damage, and it might affect a few things also in the mirror. The other two are Slowbro that we sometimes use in like restricted formats, which is a shame. I want to use Galarian Slowbro again this season. Maybe not, but yeah, they are also affected. Now, the next one is Earthquake. This is 10 less damage. And this might be a nerf quite needed for Galarian Stunfisk mostly. But let's take a look at other 8 Pokemon that I think are very meta relevant at times. Galarian Stunfisk obviously is one of them. Swampert might run Sludge Wave now because there are more grass types in Great League. Walrein might be a massive one, especially like in mirror situations. You always need to throw Earthquakes, right? And it's nerfed now, so sometimes when you might need an Earthquake and Power Snow down, it might not be enough anymore. Maybe you need an Earthquake and an Icicle Spear. Now maybe you need, instead of an Earthquake and Icicle Spear, now 2 Earthquakes. All those kind of things. Gliscor did get a slight upgrade with Aerial Ace has less energy now. However, Earthquake, its primary nuke, is now nerfed, which is unfortunate for Decibel Viper. Meganium, Earthquake also has been nerfed. Meganium might have more use now that our flyers, primarily Altaria, are a little bit nerfed. However, I'm not sure if it's better than Venusaur. Diggersby, also one, might run Hyper Beam as well, right? But Earthquake, its primary nuke, ground nuke, now is nerfed. Politoed has Ice Beam as well. It's coverage now from the community day, right? But Earthquake now is nerfed on it as well. And in some scenarios, especially against other water types, you need 2 Earthquakes to KO. It might be a little bit more now. And the other one, the last one I have for Master League, is Metagross. Earthquake usually is used for Pokemon like Dialga. I still think it does a very reasonable amount of damage, but you'll definitely notice in like situations where you need to Earthquake like a full Steel type or something like that. Now, there's a lot of Pokemon with movesets that we're gonna go through, but I think these 3 Pokemon are the Pokemon that benefit the most from this moveset update. And for one of them, like very obvious Greedent. Now 4 mud shots. Or 4 mud shots for a body slam. Body slam already being really good now on Greedent. Basically, you might really need a good steel type like Registeel, even Bastiodon or Carbing, new Carbing, right? To keep this thing in check. Because this will be a very, very spammy Pokemon. And I think this will probably be top meta. The next one I think is really good is Steelix. Now really more as a pseudo dragon with Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe already really good on Rayquaza in Master League, right? Because always debuffs. Axel just doesn't really get to a lot of moves, so you don't. You know, it's a good move, way better than Dragon Claw for sure with that attack drop. But Haxorus just doesn't get to that many, and Steelix has the bulk to get to many more. And it also they kind of wall each other, the Carbink and the Steelix. However, Steelix does have that Earthquake. And the next one, I think this is really good coverage. I think Scorching Sands. Now that Carbink is around as a good rock type, Scorching Sands provides pretty good coverage. And because of Carbink's very high defense, I haven't run any simulations, but Ninetales might be able to get to 2 of these attacks that might KO the Carbink. So that's why I think this is a really good update too. And Carbink annihilates Charizard, so this might be the prime fire type that we'll see. Now, you saw me mention Scorching Sands. This is one of the 3 attacks that come with this update. There are 3 new charge attacks, which is pretty nice. The first one, Scorching Sands, which is a very interesting move. I think a really good one. A ground type charge attack. This is 50 energy, 80 power, basically a Dark Pulse clone. But I think there's like a 30% chance, basically just like Crunch, to debuff the opponent by 1 attack stage. I think this is going to be a really good attack. The next one is Trailblaze. I'm not super excited about this, but that's basically also because I'm not a fan of Flame Charge. This is a Flame Charge clone, but for grass, as a grass type. It's 50 energy, 65 power, and you boost your attack by 1 stage. I think it's not a super good attack, but what I do like about it is the Pokemon that get it, such as Sudowoodo and Ampharos, right? I think that's pretty cool. The last one that we have is Triple Axel. This is like an Icy Wind clone, however, now your attack goes up instead of debuffing the opponent by 1 attack stage. So I think that's a cool addition. Triple Axel isn't really taught to a lot of good Pokemon in this update, but we'll go to the block in a sec. Another upgrade that we have is X Scissor. This has been increased by 20 power. I don't know how much energy it has been increased by, but we'll have to see. I don't think it will be a lot. I think this will be a significant upgrade. Most bug Pokemon aren't quite bulky, so it can't be too expensive, I would imagine. These are basically the Pokemon that benefit. I think Beedrill can be a big one. Lurantis might be a pretty big one. I don't think the other ones are super meta breaking. Genesect is nice for Master League, but really relies on its drive coverage, right? And I think Golisopod might see some good use too, but it's difficult in the current meta when Greedent did get such a big upgrade. The next one I think can be quite significant is the drop in energy for Aerial Ace. This might make Pidgeot and Mandibuzz more preferable over Noctowl. I think it might also be good for Mantine, right? Already being pretty good and a good competitor with Pelipper for best water flyer. And for Gliscor, you might want to drop Night Slash for Aerial Ace. I don't know how good it's going to be, but we'll see. Superior, I think Aerial Ace could be useful to fight other grass types. But again, Venusaur might just do that role a little bit better. For Emolga, you become a little bit more consistent against fighters because you don't need to bait like against Medicham. If you go straight acrobatics against Medicham, you actually lose. And if they call a discharge bait, you also still lose. Hawlucha is an interesting one, right? Because it was nerfed before. It lost Wing Attack, and that didn't make it. And Sky Attack, it lost Sky Attack as well. Now Aerial Ace is cheaper. It might be a little bit better and beat Medicham as well consistently. Tropius, a good staple. Yeah, just a little bit of a better flyer attacker with the energy drop in Aerial Ace. And same for Togetic. Aerial Ace, I think people just rather ran Ancient Power instead for coverage. Now Aerial Ace might be preferable. Then there's 4 attack changes. Let's take a look at a few more. These are not as relevant. The first one is Astonish, currently charging 3 energy per turn. And if it's like a big upgrade, it could be better for like Drifblim maybe. And maybe it's better coverage for Dunsparce, but I don't think it will be better than the current options that they have. Maybe it will be. Maybe I'm wrong. And I highly doubt it will be better than Shadow Claw for like Kofagrigus, Runerigus, and Haunter. Dig currently is, I believe, 80 energy for 100 power, which is awful. This move needs a complete revamp to make it viable. And the Pokemon that could potentially use it are Gligar, Diggersby, Linoon, and again, Dunsparce. Another one, Poltergeist, becomes a little bit better of a nuke. And this is, I think, mainly, I know Chandler, one of my favorite Pokemon, learns it, but I don't think it's very significant. Maybe for Master League, but like, you barely use it there anyway. Maybe Master Premier. But I think it's mainly an upgrade for Dusclops, one of my favorites in Vanguard, in Gym Breakers. This Pokemon has bulk. It basically is one of the few Pokemon that has the bulk to build to Poltergeist. That's why I like it on Dusclops. The other one that might like it is Gourgeist. Also has some bulk, not as much as Dusclops, but might have some use in it. The last one, our favorite, Boomburst, is, I believe, a Hyper Beam clone right now. It's 75 energy, 150 damage, which is actually pretty big. But the Pokemon that learn it just don't really use it. Maybe Flygon, because it charges quickly. The energy decrease for 150 power could be pretty good though. But yeah, like Exploit never gets to it, right? With Bite. O probably prefers Dragon Claw, Close Combat, and the other one is Noivern. That's just a Pokemon we don't use. So now let's take a look at the list of moveset updates from all these Pokemon on the blog post. For one, we have Magnemite that learns Volt Switch, Magnemite, Magneton, and Magnezone. I'm not sure if this will be quite useful. Definitely on Magnezone because Spark has been a little bit more expensive, so it charged the Wild Charge much slower. Gives it better farm down potential, but your charge attacks discharge slower. That's a lot of charge. So I think it might be useful, but a 4-turn move on a squishy Pokemon is difficult to utilize. Regieleki is yeah, I mean, it has Thundershock right now. It has very poor bulk. This is very much neglectable. Swallowed, Mudshot is a big upgrade over Infestation in my opinion because it charges faster, and I believe it has Body Slam, Ice Beam, and Gunk Shot. It's just not a great combination in the current Open Great League meta, especially when Pokemon like Registeel and Carbink are going to be that good. I don't know. I don't think they will be great. Greedent, I just talked about. I think this will be top meta. Croagunk and Toxicroak with Mudshot makes it like pseudo fighters like Poliwrath with Mudshot was. Don't think it will be highly necessary, but maybe in restricted meta. Onix and Steelix with Breaking Swipe. I think it's huge, especially Mega Steelix and Master League and Steelix and Ultra League. However, there's still Registeel to take care quite easily of Steelix. And with Breaking Swipe, instead of Psychic Fangs, you also become a little bit worse against like Fairies, even though you have that bulky Steel defensive typing to take care of that. I think this is a good one. Yeah, I think it's a good one. Just good. We'll see how much effect it has. Rhydon and Rhyperior with Breaking Swipe is very interesting as well. But this is more for Master League, and simply because Breaking Swipe might cover dragons a little bit better. It like gives a little bit more coverage against Pokemon like Rayquaza. So Rhyperior, I think a very good upgrade. Also a cheap charge attack, right? Instead of Surf or Superpower, which also are cheap. But Superpower is debuffing yourself, and Surf really only for like Groudon, which you kind of lose hard anyway. So I do like Breaking Swipe on Rhyperior. Sceptile, I think might be useful for Ultra League for like Giratinas. I believe Sceptile also learns Earthquake. It's a little bit tough to say because you probably don't want to give up the Leaf Blade, and if you run Leaf Blade, Breaking Swipe, you are walled by Steel type. So also an iffy one. I think Sceptile has like Bullet Seed Leaf Blade combination is really good, but Breaking Swipe is a difficult attack to run with it. Heliolisk is very fragile. Has an interesting typing of normal and electric type. If you hate Noctowl, this is the Pokemon to run. Breaking Swipe is interesting coverage. I think right now, I'm not sure which grass type attack it was, but it had like Energy Ball or Grass Knot, either one of those. And I think Breaking Swipe is good coverage with it. I don't think it will become top meta, however. Regidraco, extremely neglectable because its only fast attack is Bite. Axelgor, fast attack Water Shuriken. I believe this only has like pretty expensive charge attacks as well, so not super great. This does open the door to just one moveset update away from being really good though. Hitmonlee, Minxiao, Incineroar, Riolu, Lucario with Blaze Kick. I think this is interesting coverage, but probably mainly for restricted metas. Lucario with Blaze Kick might be a little bit interesting, but you have Fighting to cover opposing Steel types. Fighting also covers Ice types. So this might not be as useful, really. It does go nicely with Shadow Ball and Counter, however, so I think it might have some use here. Incineroar usually, at this point, doesn't really need it. Has Dark Pulse and Flame Charge. Hitmonlee's not a preferred fighter in the first place. Yeah, so I don't think that's a big one. Razor Shell, I'm just gonna go through this one real quick because I think this one's almost entirely neglectable. It's a very cheap charge stack, however, so if you ever need to just bait, right, where you don't need X-Scissor on and Aerial Ace on Golisopod, for example, Razor Shell might be an option. I think it debuffs the defense as well, or a chance at least, or buffs it. Either way, it's not a great attack over others, like Cloyster has better ones, Barbarica has better ones, even Crawl Down has like Grab Hammer, Night Slash. You don't want to really put Razor Shell on that. Magical Leaf is, I believe, 3.3 damage and energy per turn. Makes it a little bit of a stronger fast attack rather than gaining energy over like Vine Whip. Mr. Mime probably doesn't have a lot of use of it. It has Confusion right now, which is fine for it with the same type of attack bonus. Blossom has Bullet Seed and Razor Leaf as well. This is a little bit in between. Meganium, same story. Rose Raid actually, I think this is actually really useful for Rose Raid because currently it doesn't really have a good, like damaging fast attack, right? It has Bullet Seed and the other one is Poison Jab, which is good, but it's not grass. So I think it's a useful one for Rose Raids. Rose Raid, however, has fallen a little bit out of most metas. Like it used to be okay in Master League Classic, but like even that, or Master League Premier, I mean. Miss Magius, basically neglectable. Shaman might actually become more useful. Its signature move is quite good, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not too convinced because its charge stacks are quite expensive. The CGI, I'm probably butchering that name. I just can't pronounce it. But this is actually quite useful, like as a Trevenant replacement, but then with Brave Bird to have pretty good coverage, right? You won't be walled by like Noctowl, so that's pretty good. I think this Pokemon might become a staple with Frenzy Plant, even though your moveset might be a little bit more expensive, but I think it could be really good with that. Gardevoir with Magical Leaf could be something. It charges fast and Confusion and Charm. Lilligant is probably a little bit neglectable. Not a great Pokemon. Has very expensive attacks as well, and not a great bulk. Meowstic, I don't know. It's a new Pokemon, so we'll see. We don't know those yet. We have Tauros, also quite neglectable with Trailblaze. Trailblaze was the Flame Charge clone, right? Which I think is super interesting on Sudowoodo because now you can hit water types back. So I think that's pretty good on Sudowoodo. However, you're not bulky, so the odds that you just feint to one water attack is quite high. I think it's also cool on Ampharos, but Ampharos currently has a lot of coverage, right? You already have Electric to cover water types, but I think this is mainly to threaten Swampert, and I think I like that. I do like that. I'm pretty sure about that. Scissor is an interesting one. Not one you need exactly because Night/X Scissor that's buffed as well. And Iron Head already is quite good coverage. You don't have a lot of water types to deal with. Your main concern usually is fire types. Even though water types do resist the Bullet Punch, the steel type fast attack. I don't know. This could be something. I'm not too convinced. The size is also pretty classy. Cleaver is also quite fragile. I think it's a rock and bug type. Could be kind of useful coverage right against water types, but I'm not too convinced. Also difficult to obtain for Grey League. Ursaring is, just very fragile. It has actually a pretty good moveset, I believe, in like, it has both Counter and Shadow Claw, I believe. It has Close Combat Play Rough, so this might be something useful, but Ursaring is not the best Pokemon to use, in my opinion. Ursaluna. Again, if you like need to cover Swampert really good, this might be the attack you need. So could be good. It's not gonna help against Kyogre though, because again, a Flame Charge clone is just not really strong. Salzbug also has a really expensive charge attack, so not super good. Lycanroc, I do like this with counter Psychic Fang, but I don't think you can drop Rock Slide. In the event that you do, Trailblaze could be a good replacement. Lurantis with Trailblaze, I think this is a no-go, in my opinion, because Lurantis doesn't really thrive on fast attack damage, so the damage mostly comes from Leaf Blade and Superpower. Squovat is interesting. Unfortunately, there's no Greedent, so yeah, there's that. Skuntank, I think this could be big. This could be big. We'll have to see how it develops, but this could be like good Swampert coverage. Like it already has Crunch, Sludge Bomb, Flamethrower, which is a very diverse pool, right? But if you have like Trailblaze on it, you're basically impossible to wall with Skuntank. You already don't get walled by like Swampert, but I think this is good coverage. I like this. I might try this one out. This one is exciting as well, right? Berserker has good coverage in my opinion, like Shadow Claw, close combat, foul play. Now with Trailblaze, you also threaten those water types. So this moveset update, even though I think Swampert still is really good, and I will explain to you why soon. This is also threatening to Swampert, right? All the Trailblaze, but most of these Pokemon are not super viable. Girafarig, one of them, not super good, right? It really thrives on Confusion plus Psychic Fang's damage, which already, you know, it's just a very fragile Pokemon. Donphan. Actually, I really like Donphan. It has good coverage, but it's difficult to choose between Earthquake, player of Trailblaze. You obviously, you also have Earthquake. You obviously have the Body Slam that you want to keep as your first. The next one, Triple Axel. So you'd expect the Pokemon like Alolan and Sandslash to learn it, but I personally don't think that the most exciting Pokemon, or that this move isn't really given to the Pokemon that can make the best use of it. One of them is Galarian Mr. Mime. Just really bad defensive typing in Ice and Psychic in current meta, right? Especially when it's a lot of Steel types. It doesn't even do that great against like fighting types. Yeah, it's a so-so. Sneasel and Weavile, I think, are very neglectable because they are super fragile and basically not really used for PvP. Maybe this is for raids. Hitmontop is interesting. I do like this. I think this will make it its cheapest charge attack, right? Because previously it ran Close Combat and Stone Edge. And now you have Triple Axel that makes it slightly better. Hitmontop is one of the more bulky fighters behind Medicham. So I think this is one of the Pokemon that could make use of Triple Axel. And also having Flyer coverage with this. Again, Gardevoir with another fast attack makes the choices a little bit difficult. You already have Charm for Dragons, so you don't need Ice for that. It's useful for Flies, though. Lopunny. Yeah, Lopunny is an interesting one because you also have Fire Punch, Focus Blast with it. Might be pretty big for Moss League for Mega Lopunny. Because you cover Dragons a little bit better. Mr. Rhyme, same story as Galarian Mr. Mime. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know these Pokemon at all. I think this is to be added, right? It's Arena. This is to be added still. So I don't know. We don't know yet. Then we have Kanto Sandslash with Scorching Sands. I think this is actually really good because you probably always need 2 charge attacks to KO something with Kanto Sandslash, especially now that Earthquake has been nerfed. So I think this is really good for Kanto Sandslash. Does that make it top tier? Probably not. Kanto Nightingale just spoke about. I think this makes Kanto Nightingale much better. Arcanine is interesting. Like, it has like nuke attacks with Wild Charge. It also has Flamethrower that's a little bit more expensive. And then it has like, it also has Psychic Fangs, of course. So you can also run like Psychic Fangs and Scorching Sands as a bait attack and Psychic Fangs. But, you know, it has like Fire Fangs, Snarl. It just makes, it's a difficult Pokemon to utilize, in my opinion. Rapidash, honestly, in my opinion, is too fragile to utilize. It runs Incinerate, usually. That or Fire Spin. And it probably doesn't, like, it already barely gets to Flame Charge, right? So barely gets to Scorching Sands as well. Entei. Not sure how Entei does in the current meta. Hopefully one day we'll get Sacred Fire because it does learn it in the main series. But might give Entei a little bit more coverage there too, along with like Flamethrower. Then there's Flygon. Vibrava, actually, I should not skip Vibrava. It learns Dragon Breath Sand Tomb currently. I can't remember the other charge deck that you want to run with it. Maybe it's Dragon Claw. Either way, I think Vibrava, like, no, I think it's Twist actually. I think this might be useful for it. It's not a good Pokemon. Don't take my word for it to build it, but could be good actually. Like Dragon Breath on a dragon with Sand Tomb. I think this is pretty solid. Now with Scorching Sands, you have a little bit of a nuke. So Flygon now has Earth Power, Earthquake, Scorching Sands. Oh, and Boom Burst. Pick your choice, I guess, right? I think Scorching Sands, same story. Maybe not same story as Sandslash because Shadow Flygon still might really one-shot Pokemon with Earthquake. But the regular will probably want Scorching Sands now. Claydol, what is a moveset update without a new move for Claydol, right? Already has Earth Power. This is a little bit cheaper, a little bit less damage, but I say, like, the thing with Claydol is you have big fast attack pressure in Mud Slap or Confusion, or Extrasensory if you prefer that, but that's not a lot of damage. So usually, like, you want to hit like 1 Shadow Ball or 1 Earth Power or 1 Ice Beam, and then farm down. That's ideally how Claydol works. It's a bad defensive type, so it's usually difficult to utilize. But I don't know. Maybe this works as well if you get like a debuff. Hippowdon. I know a lot of streamers are a fan of Hippowdon. I'm not because it's slow, right? It has like Fire Fang, Thunder Fang, Ice Fang. Does it have Fire Fang? I'm not sure, but it has Ice Fang and Thunder Fang. Magmar and Magmortar, quite neglectable. Yeah, they have like Fire Punch and Thunderbolt currently. Scorching Sense could be nice coverage, but Cantonite just does the job better. Diggersby, I think a really good upgrade as well here, right? You have now the option between Dig that has been changed, Earthquake that has a little bit been nerfed, and then Scorching Sense. Again, if you need 2 charge attacks, the cheapest one is probably the one you want to go with. So I think Scorching Sense is really good here. Extra Drill. This is an interesting one because if you are the one using Drill Run against someone using Scorching Sense, then you have a cheaper charge attacks than they do. So I don't really see use for Extra Drill here. Maybe if you really badly want to try get those debuffs, but I don't think Extra Drill needs it. And then Palo Sands currently has, I believe, Mud Shot, Shadow Ball, and Earth Power. It's a little bit cheaper than Earth Power, so it might be useful here as well. I don't know. I think it's good. I really wish I had a good one of these, to be honest. I think it's a good Pokemon. The Scorching Sense also is an upgrade there. So, yeah, those are basically all the changes that we have here. Like I may have said it somewhere, the meta Pokemon are still pretty good, and that's because most of the new moves or new attacks that are given to Pokemon aren't very viable on everything. Mostly maybe in restricted formats. Now, the last thing I will go into is explaining why I think those Pokemon that I showed at the start are going to be top meta. So after all these updates, I think this is my prediction for the Pokemon that benefit the most. Greedent becomes very meta, beats Lickitung very consistently. One of the things that beat Lickitung very consistently was Noctowl, which is now a little bit nerfed. It also survives 2 Earthquakes from Galarian Stunfisk more comfortably. So that's 2 Pokemon it's used to struggle with that are basically nerfed or somewhat gone. The party pooper to those 2 is Registeel, and Registeel did not get a nerf this time at all. So I think Registeel still is an absolute top threat. Because of Carbink, there might be less Charizard next season, and that might make Registeel excel more as well. And to counter Registeel, I think Swampert is still good. Swampert also has Sludge Wave to cover the grass types a little bit. Like Shadow actually one-shots a couple grass types, or 2 Hydros might KO some of the more fragile ones. So I think Swampert also really good. Steelix, maybe not as good as the other ones, but definitely an absolute dragon killer. I don't know how common dragons will be now, honestly. But I think Breaking Swipe is a really good addition in general. Might see more use in restricted formats, though. And again, like Registeel and Swampert also take it down quite hard. I think Pelipper now might be the most optimal flyer to use with Lantern gone, or Lantern less common. Basically, the worst thing you might be able to face are Carbink and Registeel. And Registeel, with shields up, if you don't get a debuff, you can actually win the 2 shields there. So Pelipper, I think, is one of the better generalists, along with like Lickitung and Greedent. Obviously, it loses most of its matchups, neutral matchups on bulk. Kanto Ninetales, I think just excels now because of its coverage in Scorching Sands, which is also a pretty good charge attack combined with Weather Ball. Also takes down Registeel quite well. And then there are 4 more Pokemon that I predict to see a lot in the meta as well. I think Medicham still is very good as the prime fighter. Carbink will be the party pooper of the next meta. By that I mean the Bastiodon. Funny thing, Bastiodon does beat Carbink, so pick your party pooper there. And Carbink also beats like a couple of the main meta things, right? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of Registeel you have to deal with. Pelipper, the Weather Balls don't do enough. It puts up a good fight against Lickitung. It's like IV dependent who wins that. Beats Greedent. So I think Carbink is really good. And it pairs so well with Venusaur. With less flies, Venusaur excels even more. So that might be a core you might have to deal with in the next season. I think Mandibuzz will replace Noctowl somewhat. I don't really see a rise in fairies per se. And in that matter, I think that Mandibuzz also profits from this, from the Sky Attack nerf. And that might make Mandibuzz, with the Aerial Ace buff, the preferred flyer now. The last Pokemon that I want to call out here is one of the Pokemon that has such good neutral coverage. Didn't get an update at all, but Alolan Sandslash just has play against about everything, right? Greedent probably isn't as good because Mudshot super effective and Body Slam super spammy, but has play against Lickitung, against Registeel, not so much against Swampert. I mind you might disagree. Beats Steelix, can beat Pelipper, not great against Cantonites, but you have Durant to fight back. You can beat the Mandibuzz, you can beat the Carbink, you can beat the Venusaur. This is my picture of I hope you liked the video. We'll see in a few days what the updates are going to be. And if I'm right, we'll see. I love to be right. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Drop a subscribe if you liked it, and see you in the next video. Bye.